Hi, this is Mike Perez with Mastering the Young Band, MikePerezBand.com. This video is going to talk about my Chromatic Basics pages from my Essential Foundations technique and warm-up method book. Chromatics in the young band are way more than just the chromatic scale. Chromatics are a way of teaching your students new fingerings, regular in addition to chromatic fingerings, and expanding their range, low and high. What better way of expanding range than through doing it through half steps chromatically? If there is a priority in my book of exercises to not skip, Chromatic Basics is one of them. It is a fantastic page for teaching your students, obviously, new fingerings and range. But if you think of them really as a different type of long tone, it will help you to find time in your rehearsal time and your class time to be able to play these pages. So Chromatic Basics, as you probably see on your pages there, are outlined very similar to my first 5 notes set 2. They start with a whole note with a note. It says the note name on it for the students, and then it goes to 2 half notes, quarter, quarter, half note, quarter notes, etc. Because of that, I recommend you start the first Chromatic Basics page after your students have done the first 5 notes set 2. Once they are established on those first 5 notes, then you can go to the Chromatic Basics page. Now, with that being said, with clarinet, if you have a just clarinet class, you might want to consider not having your clarinets go to Chromatic Basics after the first 5 notes set 2. You may instead want to have them go through the Concert F exercises pages. That way they go down to their low G and start working their right hand. It's more important for young band students to go from the first 5 notes to their right hand, learning their B, their A, and their G, and getting proficient on that, and then going to chromatics. So if you have that luxury of having just a clarinet class, I do recommend you do that for your clarinets. If not, if you have mixed woodwind classes or even just full all students, all instruments in your young band, then by all means you can start the Chromatic Basics page. You'll just have to make sure with your clarinets that they do the lower octaves that are written. So the chromatic fingerings are so important for the young band students to learn. For instance, the flute, there's 2 thumb fingerings for flute. There's what I call top thumb, and then there's bottom thumb. And the video I did on Mastering the Young Band on YouTube, it's called Flute Fingerings Explained. It's a great way of learning. If you're not quite sure how the flute thumbs work and the fingerings work, watch that video. It'll hopefully help clarify the difference between the thumbs for the flutes. For clarinets and saxophones, there's the chromatic F sharp and G flat fingerings that they use. And those are just a couple examples of different fingerings that students use for chromatic scale. If you think of these Chromatic Basics pages really as long tones, as a warm-up for your band, you're going to be able to find time to implement these into your band class, into your beginner band class. Especially with the way they're written, where it's 1 note at a time and 1 line at a time, whole note, half note, that kind of thing. It's a really great way of getting your students warmed up for band class, and then of course they're learning their chromatics as well. The way my Chromatic Basics are written is the first page is just low concert B flat to F. Chromatic Basics 2 fills in where it goes from the concert F up to upper B flat. 3 works down into the lower range, and then 4 goes from upper B flat and up higher. So depending on the time of year, the music you're playing, and just when your students are ready, you can go Chromatic Basics in order. I oftentimes, with my brass players, I skip Chromatic 2, I go Chromatic Basics, and then I actually go to Chromatic Basics 3 next, and then come back to 2. So you don't necessarily have to do them in order. Do what makes sense for you, your students, and what you're comfortable with as an educator. The ultimate goal of these chromatic basics is to build up to the chromatic scale. If you've taught the young band before and you haven't done a lot with chromatics, and all of a sudden you just try to have them learn the chromatic scale, you know how hard it is for students to learn. They get really frustrated by it. Students don't always understand the inharmonic relationships. It just becomes really overwhelming. If Chromatic Basics can be your students' first touch for chromatic notes, chromatic fingerings, and the way they look on the page, when they do eventually get to their chromatic scales later in the year, or even in their second year, it's way less overwhelming to them. So think of these Chromatic Basics pages as well as a way of building up to that chromatic scale. So use these Chromatic Basics pages as long tones as a way of building and expanding range, and I think you'll be very pleased with your students' understanding of chromatics.